Word of God, when faith follows truth, when faith follows fact, faith maintains balance and pulls off the impossible.
Christ is enough apologetics.
Sneako
I want to
posted a
show you the
video.
conversation that these guys are having. So this guy here, Sneako, is sitting in the presence of this guy here, and he's simply asking him a question, right? He goes like, you know what? There is a specific hadith I don't agree with. There is a specific hadith that I've got questions about, right? And so watch what this guy says, right? Notice that this guy does not allow him to even state the hadith, but he goes on a tangent to build a foundation, apparently. He goes like, supposedly, he's trying to kind of, lay some groundwork here. Let's just watch this for the sake of actually understanding how Islam works, and for the sake of seeing like how evil this is, that, Muslims are not allowed to think, for themselves. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to pause it every once and then, simply because I really want to make sure that we, get the hang of this, right? And what this is really saying. Okay. I'm just going to put the volume to max here, and yeah, so let's go.
Where he tells a sheikh that he doesn't like a hadith. And boy, did he find out the real face of Islam.
So he's telling the sheikh he didn't like a hadith, right? And boy, he finds out about the real face of Islam, all right? So far, this is clear.
I've been struggling with this one ever since I read this hadith, which, stuff a lot. I have to admit, I didn't like when I read it.
Listen, no, Sheikh, tell me. First of
Notice the sheikh did not allow Sneako to go ahead and expound on the hadith, right? He cut him off right there and then before even he says something. That's just a typical shuffle that Muslims make all the time, right? So as soon as you say a negative statement, right, that's a no, it's a red flag. They have to jump in and kind of, shut you up right away, right? So you don't talk much, right? This is exactly what happened here.
all, we as Muslims have to have submission, certainty, no questions asked, no strings attached. This is Quran, I believe it. Do you fully embrace it? Yes. No questions asked. This is a hadith. Do you take it? Is it authentic?
Watch what Sneako did. He went like that when it came down to the hadith, right? So he said, do we fully embrace the Quran? He said yes. And then he said he asked the same about the hadith when he said, do we fully embrace the hadith? Sneako went, I'm not really sure, right? But then the sheikh answered for him and he said yes.
Is it?
That's what I read, yeah.
Then if it's authentic, it's from Allah. How could I be shaky? Because if you want to be shaky, this means that you don't have certainty. And when you don't have certainty, you're this close to flipping to the dark side.
So notice how disingenuous this guy is, right? So this guy is literally going like point blank, right? Like very straightforward statement. He's going, if ever you doubt, if ever you have any concerns, right? If you happen to ever ask a question, however small the question is, right? Then you're shaky in your faith. You're shaky in the deen, right? And therefore, you know what? You're going to flick in and out of Islam, and you're most likely going to end up being on the dark side. This sheikh is saying the truth. This guy, is saying just as it is, right? He's not compromising. He's not concerned with what people might say about Islam, what, their take might be, about Islam. So in other words, he's plainly telling the guy, he's telling him, listen, if ever you thought, about asking any questions about the hadith, right, then you flicked right to the dark side immediately, right? In other words, he's telling me he's not allowed to think for himself. He's not allowed to, have any opinion for himself, right? He's not allowed to use his brain. He's not allowed to use his consciousness. He's not allowed to use any of the reasoning, right, that as a human being he is given, right? He needs to, blindly accept anything that comes down his way from the Quran and from the hadith. But notice, the gaslighting, notice the manipulation that he's telling him right off the bat, right? If you wanted to say something, don't say it anymore. So it's kind of almost making you feel bad for, even disclosing, what he was about to disclose, right? He's telling him, you know what? I'm just going to cut you off right now. Don't say no more. People don't have to hear it, right? Keep it for yourself, right? Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass Islam, with you. Just hold it in, right? And don't spit it out, right? So notice how manipulative this man is. And that's what most of them, for most part, actually do, right? They're very manipulative in that sense, is that they won't let you speak or think for yourself, right? They'll tell you right off the bat, right? If you dare ever questioning Islam, whatever it may be, right, from the Quran, or if it's from the hadith, then you have fallen out of Islam. You flicked in and out, right? Or you flicked out completely into utter darkness.
But I mean, how are we able to judge how authentic hadith is? Or
You don't. How do you judge whether this neurosurgeon who's going to do a spine cord surgery on you is authentic or not?
judged by opinions of other people?
Okay, so by whose people?
The professionals.
Professionals. So you go to the scholars.
That's why I'm asking you.
I'm coming to you. I'm not answering yet. I'm just setting the foundation for the belief. The biggest problem we have with the Westerners from America and from Canada and from Europe is that they don't have their Islam on cemented area. They're so easy to flip to the other side. And that's why you find many of them starting to be good and strong and mashallah, and all of a sudden, I have doubts. Why? The Prophet married Aisha when she was 9. You're a kafir.
Notice how they're laughing about this, statement that he made. He said, if any of these guys talking about, the small time Muslims, not the radical Islamists, if any of them have any doubt whatsoever at any point in time, right, the narrative says that there are kafirs, right? They're apostates, right? So they've immediately walked out of Islam. So much for, those Muslims having questions, having, sincere doubts about like what they're reading, right? They're not really understanding. They're just thinking for themselves. They're thinking out loud. These guys, according to this guy, their fellow Muslim brother, according to this sheikh, right? They're all kafirs. They're all apostates. They've all left Islam, right? And yet these are the same guys that will keep defending Islam. For what exactly, right? You got someone here, one of your fellow friends, telling you that you're a kafir. You've already lost, your religion. You've already went into utter darkness just because you dared asking a question. And notice how they all laughed about it. Like, instead of going like, oh my gosh, like this is kind of hard to digest. This is hard to swallow, right? I've had someone in my entourage who's asked a question once, right? He might have actually become a kafir. So let me go ahead and try and bring him back into the deen, right? They're all laughing. They're all mocking. Like, for them, it's a matter of mockery. It's a matter of just, it's a matter of laughter that someone would, walk out of Islam and then die in his sins and go to hell, right? So, they don't care about like whether or not you're a Muslim, or they care about, their aqidah, what their aqidah says. And you know what? Props to this sheikh for actually saying the way it should be said. Props to this guy, at least, even though he's a radical Islamist, this guy is a fundamentalist, right? At least he's saying it just the way, Islam says it. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't, beat around the bush. He's saying it differently from anybody else. But anyways, you get the point here, you guys, all right?
If you doubt the Prophet ﷺ for a second, you're a full-fledged kafir. Get the heck out of my house.
Watch what he says. He says, if you're a Muslim and if you doubt, any of the hadith or the Quran, how many Muslims have we actually discussed with, engaged in conversations, right? Thorough conversations that have actually doubted some of the stuff that is in the Quran, right? So according to this guy, according to his admission, right, they're all full-fledged kafirs. And how does he act with them, right? He doesn't try to bring them back into the flock. He goes like, you're a full-fledged kafir. Get out of my house. That's the treatment that you actually deserve, right? For being a full-fledged kafir, because that is the result of you doubting, thinking something over, right, in your mind, debating something that doesn't really make sense for you, right? That's the, that's the dogma of Islam. According to Islam, according to Islamic decree, you're a kafir and you've walked out of Islam. And yet every time we tell a Muslim, that's what your religion says, right? They kind of laugh it out, right? They brush it off with a flick of a hand. They go like, no, what do you mean, right? If they're unsure about a Quranic verse or about a hadith we bring up to them, usually the response is like, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Even though, right, I have concerns and doubts about this, right? I'm still a Muslim. No, your scholars tell you that you're not a Muslim. The proof is that, this guy just said it, plain and simple, straight up, right? No deflecting. He said it in your face. You are a full-fledged kafir just because you wanted to reason with your mind, just because you had a brain that you wanted to use. That was the biggest, mistake you could make, right? So notice how everybody's just laughing about this.
Even think about it. No second chances. Islam is crystal clear. The Prophet said, I've left you on Islam, which is as clear as night and day. There's nothing in.
That's just such a stupid statement this guy made, right? I mean, do they even realize what they're saying, right? When they speak, right? Whatever words come out of their mouth, do they even actually weigh the words in before they speak out the words? The guy just said that the Prophet Muhammad left us with nothing ambiguous, right? I mean, the proof is right there. You've got a clear-cut evidence of what this guy is saying, right? The closed captions are there. So the guy goes like, so if someone has a hesitation, he's actually wrong about it, right? Now, I've got a couple of issues with that. Is that if that were the case and there's no confusion, no ambiguity whatsoever in Islam, why is it that someone like Sneako or thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of Muslims around the world, I know so many of them, right? Why is it that they have doubts or concerns about some things that they feel like, don't make any sense? And if it was, this simple, then why would you tell Sneako, for example, that he needs to go to the scholars of Islam, right? If it's simple, then I don't need someone to come and exegete the text that I'm reading, right? I don't need someone to break the verses down for me. I can go through the Quran myself, right, and read through the Quran and the chapters of the Quran, or I can read through the Hadith, and I can come up with my own conclusions, right? Allah will speak to me; He'll make it clear, right? If it's unambiguous and unequivocally, simple and straightforward. But this just shows you once again that's just a part of their lies. They give you 50% truth, and they give you another 50% from the other side of their mouth, right? They give you another 50% lies, okay?
Ambiguous in it. So if someone has the hesitation and is not certain, you know how many counseling sessions I do over the year? Thousands. I counsel people for money. They come to me, they pay.
Did you just hear what the guy said? The guy said forefront, right, that he counsels people for money. Okay, so next time these propagandists or these sheikh will jump the gun against a Christian apologist or a Christian platform, and we'll say, for example, that these guys are doing it for the money, they're in it for the money, right? That's all they're chasing after, right? That is the biggest lie. This guy said it verbatim out of his own mouth. Like he did not hold, back from saying that he counsels people for money. Notice how much he charges. He charges $220 per session, right? For simple phone calls. So every time the phone rings, he's got a show, right? This guy has a show, right? I think he's a Saudi sheikh. And he's kind of, a fatwa guy, right? He decrees and declares things for Islam, right? So every time the phone rings and he picks up the phone, right? Every single time that the phone actually, the call comes in, right? This guy makes it $220 immediately on the spot. And he doesn't hide it. He's actually boasting about it. He's proud about it. That's
maybe $220 per hour. Not cheap. So what's the problem? And they come to me and say, Sheikh, I'm not certain that Allah exists. I think you're a kafir. End of call.
$220 to be told you're a kafir, right? Somebody has genuine concerns, right? They're calling in, right? And so they're wanting someone to pour into them, someone to minister to their hearts, someone to tell them, you know what, you've deviated from the faith, come back. Allah loves you, right? I mean, there's nothing, wrong with questioning, but you shouldn't, go down the slippery slope of deception, which is doubt and what have you, right? And then almost leave Islam, just come back, right? You would wonder, right, that this guy, as a job, right, as a professional sheikh, has to bring people into the flock of Islam when they're steering away, right? But instead, no, he's getting paid $220, a session every time the phone calls, right? Even if it's someone saying, you know what, I have doubts, he goes, you're a kafir, he hangs up in his face. These are the principles and values of Islam, my friends. People that don't care about you, they're not compassionate, they're not loving. I'm not saying that within Christianity, right, within the broad range of the Christian men and women that we hear of, these self-professed Christians out there, that they don't do the same. But all of it is completely wrong. So I'm not attributing that to Islam only. I'm just showing you that this guy is actually forefront. At least we have someone, who's being honest, who is laying it out the way it is, right? He's saying it just as it is, right? And he's not holding anything back, okay?
Watch out. If you doubt something in Islam that is beyond doubt, the Prophet ﷺ, if you look down at him, if you think bad about him, if you think something wrong with the Quran, if you think Allah Azza wa Jal is unfair, you're a kafir.
If you think Allah is unfair, if you look down at the Prophet, if you, God forbid, ever say that it is wrong for Muhammad, who's a 50-year-old man, to consummate marriage with a prepubescent 9 year old girl, if you ever dare to say that this is wrong, right, for the sake of ethical and moral, like standards, right, you're a kafir, you're a full-fledged apostate, you have left Islam, right, you're someone who's dividing the ummah, you're someone who is worth actually spitting on because you're an apostate, right, you're worth actually going to hell. So for all my Muslim friends who have ever dared saying anything about the Quran or say anything about hadith or Islam at large, right, you're a full-fledged kafir according to your religion. That is what we as Christians, right, have been saying to you all along, right? And we have been warning you of, what Islam actually says against you. If anything, we have stood in the gap for you. We've tried to reason with you, show you the true face of Islam, and you refused, right? You rejected every word that we said. And so here you have someone, you have one of your sheikhs, one of your professional dawah guys, right, actually telling you full front, right, that you are a kafir just because you dared asking a question or dared doubting, dared with your brain, right, ever having a concern about anything, really. I mean, this is what, this guy is saying. This is what Islam stands for, right? So if that's the kind of religion that you want to be a part of, good. I mean, it's all on you. At this point, it's between you and the true creator, right? I mean, you've been warned, you've been told, you've been informed, right? You've been told of the truth, you've been told of the lies, right? So it is really up to you. But if you're someone who is looking at this and going like, my, this doesn't make sense, right? This doesn't fall into, what real principles and values should be like, real compassion, real love, this does not really fall under, the real God, then you're absolutely right. And, that's when there's a spark there that is starting to, speak to you and tell you that, what, Islam might not be as innocent as you thought it was, okay?
The video was viewed by millions, and the comments suggest people have finally caught on to the dark side of Islam. Here is John McCrae dropping a truth bomb. Well, at least Sneako is getting the truth about Islam. You aren't allowed to doubt the obvious fact that a 60-year-old man sleeping with a 9-year-old is disgusting and wrong. Which is why so many Muslims on X are comfortable with accepting lies. Better than doubting, right? What do you think?